Cholesterol. Myths, fact, fiction, that's what we're going to dive into today. I've been on a low-carb, high-fat diet for years, as have some of my friends. And they ask me, but what about my cholesterol? What about your cholesterol? Is it good? Is it bad? So we're going to quickly dive into the fact that the liver produces cholesterol, and so does the brain. Nutrient-rich foods that have cholesterol, processed and fast foods that are the worst source of cholesterol for you, inflammation and how that plays in the whole system, and finally LDL and HDL, what they mean, how they work together. All right, let's dive right in. The liver cleans out all kinds of toxins, helps us with inflammation, and it also does something called lipogenesis, which is, lipo meaning fat. So it's producing fat. Why is this? We need cholesterol for all kinds of things, for healthy cell membranes, for our healthy brain. There are a lot of reasons that we need cholesterol. And so our body doesn't trust us to always eat the right amount of cholesterol, so it produces itself. And it can produce cholesterol from carbohydrates. It especially does this because when insulin rises, that kicks off lipogenesis. And what's produced is actually the most dangerous types of cholesterol, the LDL, plus triglycerides. And triglycerides at higher levels are associated with increased inflammation. So what does this mean? What this means is it's not necessarily that you eat fat and you are what you eat. You could be eating processed foods and cookies and carbohydrates, and they could be low fat, and that can kick your insulin up, your lipogenesis up, and you can be producing the most dangerous types of cholesterol. So what do? The best thing to do is to focus on whole foods. Now we're going to jump into brain health. The brain is 2% of our body weight and contains 20 to 25% of our body's cholesterol. That's a lot. The brain with the blood-brain barrier doesn't trust the liver to get the appropriate amounts of cholesterol to it, so the brain actually produces its own cholesterol. Now, some cholesterol can cross over the blood-brain barrier as well, but just know to have a healthy brain, you actually need healthy, good cholesterol levels. So there should not ever be a goal to have your cholesterol go to zero. What about nutrient-rich foods and cholesterol? Talking about liver, eggs, these kind of things. There's times in our lives when the media is just telling us, get all of these things out of your diet, right? Just basically eat salad. And yet, eggs, liver are so nutrient rich, and this is the best way to get nutrients and vitamins to your systems. It is so much better than taking vitamins, which often are not absorbed. The best way to absorb super healthy vitamins and nutrients is through natural whole foods. Don't be too scared of these whole foods that may be high in cholesterol. It is always best to go with what you know works for you, so you have to try things out, and sticking with things that actually are food. That takes me to the next topic. Processed and fast foods are often so processed, they don't even resemble food anymore. They have so many chemicals. And this is the way to get the worst kind of cholesterol into your system. This will be the unhealthy cholesterol, oils, free radicals. Most restaurant food and fast food is cooked in oils, which is the worst type of fat to bring into your system. It's super unhealthy and leads to both inflammation and high levels of bad cholesterol, that LDL cholesterol. Taking down your processed foods in your diet, taking down your fast foods in your diet, increasing your whole foods will bring you to a whole new level. And it's not really about worrying what is your fat content. It is, where is that fat coming from? And is it a type of fat that's going to lead to a lot of inflammation? Why do we care about inflammation? Inflammation is the underlying factor of almost every chronic disease. So if you can get your inflammation down, you reduce your risks significantly across the board. Let's just take metabolic disease. That's actually related to this entire idea of triglycerides and cholesterol getting deposited and into your arteries, and then all of a sudden you have hardening of your arteries, you have high blood pressure, the next thing that happens is diabetes, Alzheimer's. That entire process is called metabolic disease. And how do we stop that? I mean, that all sounds miserable. I don't want any of it. And that comes from focusing on whole foods. So simple. And as soon as we're eating processed foods, which 85% of them have sugar in them, we're raising our insulin, we're taking in all kinds of unhealthy fat, then our liver is producing more triglycerides, more unhealthy cholesterol, and the entire thing just kind of goes down the drain. So we just want to back up and we want to focus on the foods that are whole foods, natural foods, and the foods that get along with your system. Okay, now we're going to dive into HDL and LDL. I don't know about you, half the time I have to look it up and figure out, okay, which is the bad one, which is the good one. Why would the big fluffy ones be called high density? They would seem to be low density. So here's the answer. The density has to do with the amount of protein in the molecule. And those end up being small molecules with a little tiny bit of protein and a lot of cholesterol. And so those guys run around our arteries and they deposit cholesterol all in our arteries, which is not a good thing. The high density, the HDL, those are high density of protein. So they have a lot of protein and a little cholesterol. So they run around our arteries and they actually pick up the cholesterol off of the walls of the arteries and deposit it in the liver. We like them. They kind of clean things up. Even within HDL, LDL. I mean, why is there some cutoff where anything smaller is LDL and it's bad, anything that's bigger is good, right? Kind of a little bit weird. Well, you're right, it is weird. And the more advanced blood tests can actually tell you that how many are what size, right? So we don't just kind of have a cutoff and, a calculated number. We really kind of group them. And so you can see if most of your small ones that are dangerous, the LDLs, if most of those are the smallest of the smallest size, that's not great. If most of your HDLs are kind of bordering on LDL, they're kind of small HDLs, also not so great. But if your HDLs are big and fluffy, lots of protein, not that much cholesterol, they're going to be the super sweepers that are going to go through your cardiovascular system and really clean out some of the cholesterol that's already been deposited there. I don't know about you, I want to live a healthier life, but I don't want it to be super complicated. The great thing is you can kind of watch your carbs, see if you react or your blood sugar goes up and stays up too much. That might mean that you're insulin resistant. And so then you may want to keep your carbs down a little bit to watch your insulin so that lipogenesis in your liver doesn't create a bunch of the negative, the bad, the tiny little LDLs. And otherwise, focus on whole foods, avoid processed and fast foods, live a fabulous life. I'd love to hear from you what you got out of this video. Whether this is going to change anything, or did you find something in the video where it's something new or you don't agree? I'd love to hear what your thoughts are and if there's anything that you feel like you're going to change or any more questions that you have. I hope you like this video. Hit subscribe if you want to see more, and check out my other videos. To join the best conversations on your health, you can find me in these channels on social media.